The sky above Earth split open with the sound of 1,000 thunderclaps. A blinding light pierced through the clouds, casting a shadow over every city, every country, every heart. It was not a storm. Storms, after all, could be weathered. This was something else entirely. On the evening of June 15, 2025, the world's nations were plunged into chaos by an invasion they never saw coming. No warning, no explanation, just a sudden, overwhelming presence in the skies above. Governments scrambled, military forces mobilized, and the people of Earth were left to stare up in terror as hundreds of massive ships hovered over the planet like silent, malevolent gods. The ships were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Their sleek, angular designs and dark, matte surfaces reflected nothing, not even the sunlight. The massive vessels had no markings, no identifying insignia. There was no indication of who they were or where they came from. At first, people thought it was a hoax, a carefully orchestrated trick, some kind of new, advanced propaganda. Then the alarms sounded. In the blink of an eye, fighter jets launched, and military personnel took their positions. But all efforts to engage the unknown ships proved futile. The vessels didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they sent a single, cold transmission. "We are the Varkor. Earth is ours." The words crackled over every broadcast, from the highest government channels to the smallest local stations. In that moment, the world stood still. The meaning was clear. There was no negotiation, no discussion. They had come to take Earth, and humanity's fight for survival had just begun. Panic erupted. Major cities were plunged into chaos as people tried to flee, while governments scrambled to coordinate a response. But no one had prepared for this. Not for the Varkor. Humanity's weapons, its aircraft, tanks, and firearms, were useless against the invaders. They were like ants swarming beneath the crushing boot of a giant. In London, thousands of people rushed the streets in blind fear. They sought refuge in underground bunkers, desperately hoping that somehow they could escape the unknown threat above. In New York, skyscrapers trembled as fighter jets screamed overhead, unable to touch the ships looming above. And in Beijing, the Chinese military tried to counteract with their state-of-the-art defense systems, only to have them fall silent before the alien technology. Yet, the Varkor made no move to destroy the planet, at least not yet. Instead, they offered an ultimatum, broadcasted on every channel, transmitted through every frequency. Asterisk, surrender the planet to us, or face extinction. Asterisk. It was a threat of unimaginable magnitude. The Varkor were known throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as annihilators. They would strip worlds of all their resources, decimate entire civilizations, and leave behind nothing but ashes. But it was their cold, calculating precision that made them feared above all. Their goal was not just to conquer, it was to erase. Earth had no response. At least, not yet. In the White House, President Elizabeth Moreno stood frozen in front of a massive display screen, watching as the Varkor fleet moved silently above Earth's cities. Her advisors were frantic, shouting commands and giving reports, but none of them had an answer. Not one person in that room knew how to face the unknown. "Madam President," said General Andrews, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to make contact. We need to find out who they are, what they want." But the message had already been sent. Earth's desperation echoed in the void of space, reverberating across the galaxy. "Help us." And somewhere across the vast expanse of space, a response was coming. The message was received by an ancient force, an alliance of human warriors forgotten by time itself. They had been watching from the fringes of the galaxy, biding their time. Now, with Earth's call for help, the stage was set for the most unlikely of saviors. But even they would face challenges. The Varkor were not an enemy to be underestimated. Their response was swift, calculated, and deadly. Earth had been thrown into a war it was not prepared for. But somewhere deep within humanity's heart, something stirred. A spark of defiance. In the quiet of the night, as cities burned and governments collapsed, one thought echoed across the minds of humanity's defenders. We will not fall without a fight. And so, The fight for Earth began, not with the roar of tanks or the flash of fighter jets, but with the indomitable will of those who refused to let the invaders take everything they held dear. The Varkor had arrived, but so had Earth's greatest strength, hope. And hope, as history had proven time and time again, was something humanity could turn into fire and fury. The galaxy had forgotten them. But now, as Earth's final hour approached, the forgotten fleet was returning, and the Varkor would soon learn that no one forgets humanity's fury. When the signal was sent, it wasn't just a cry for help, it was a summons. A call that had reached across the farthest reaches of space, where the light of Earth had long since dimmed for those who had once called it home. Admiral Kalen stood in the dimly lit command center of the forgotten fleet, the distant stars stretching out beyond the massive windows of his flagship. The massive fleet, now a sprawling armada of warships, all once human, had been dormant for centuries. Abandoned after the fall of an ancient human empire, they had existed in the outer edges of known space, forgotten by all except the ghosts of their creators. The message was simple, but the implications were anything but. Help us. We are Earth's last hope. It was a plea that echoed through the depths of space, reaching the one place it needed to go. The forgotten fleet, a bastion of humanity's lost military power, had been waiting for a reason to return. Now, the galaxy would feel the weight of their decision. Admiral Kalen stared at the flickering image of Earth, his brow furrowed in silent contemplation. The fleet he commanded was unlike any other, an advanced force, a fusion of human engineering and alien technology acquired in their centuries of exile. Yet, even with all their might, the Admiral knew the gravity of the situation. The Varkor were no mere invaders, they were an unstoppable force, with weapons and technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. We can't let them fall, Kalen muttered to himself. His first officer, Commander Isha, stood beside him. But what are we walking into, Admiral? Earth was always fragile. We don't know what we're facing now. Are we prepared for this war? Kalen met her gaze. His eyes, hardened by decades of battle, softened for a brief moment. We are humanity's last chance. If we fail, everything we've fought for is lost. If Earth falls, no one will stand against the Varkor. He turned toward the tactical hologram that hovered in the center of the room, displaying the known enemy fleet formations. We've waited long enough. It's time to honor our oath. For centuries, the forgotten fleet had existed in the shadows, keeping to themselves, their existence a secret to all, but a select few. They were survivors of a war that had decimated a once thriving human empire, exiled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. But when Earth's cry for help pierced the veil of space, it stirred something deep within them. They had once been a proud, unstoppable force, humanity's finest warriors, bred from generations of combat and resolve. Their time had come again. Kalen's command bridge hummed with life as the order was given. The fleet, now a fearsome collection of ships, each one a testament to human innovation, began its journey toward Earth. The ships were a combination of sleek warships, heavily armored and bristling with energy weapons and colossal dreadnoughts, massive enough to rival anything the Varkor could send. For every mile they traveled, a new hope blossomed in the heart of the fleet. The Varkor had underestimated humanity. As the ships of the forgotten fleet surged toward their destination, Commander Isha addressed the crew. We've been in isolation for centuries, but now we're a part of something bigger. Earth may have forgotten us, but we will remind them what it means to be human. The fleet's engines ignited with a roar as they entered hyperspace, tearing through the vast expanse of stars. The journey would take several days, but even in that time, Kalen knew the Varkor would not sit idle. Every moment brought Earth closer to destruction, and yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the Admiral felt something stir in his chest, a long-lost sense of purpose. Back on Earth, things were deteriorating rapidly. Cities burned, and governments crumbled. The Varkor had made no further demands, no offers of negotiation. They had come to Earth for one thing, to conquer, to claim it as their own, and to exterminate any resistance. Humanity's military response was fragmented. helpless against the precision and scale of the alien invasion. Earth's last line of defense was crumbling, and their chance of survival seemed slimmer by the day. But the Forgotten Fleet, growing ever closer to their destination, had not forgotten humanity's greatest weapon, ingenuity. They had watched from the edges of the galaxy, waiting for a call. And now, that call had been answered. Kalen's fleet was a living testament to humanity's will to survive and fight back, no matter the cost. "We won't fail them," Kalen said quietly, his eyes focused on the holographic map that lay before him. "We'll remind them what happens when they threaten Earth." The Forgotten Fleet, though once lost, was returning to the heart of humanity's battle. The Varkor had no idea what awaited them, but they would soon find out, and Earth would discover that, in its darkest hour, humanity had never been truly alone. For every moment the invaders gained, Earth's rage swelled like a storm, silent, waiting to break. The Varkor had underestimated one thing, the sheer ferocity of human defiance. As the alien ships loomed overhead, humanity's response was not one of helplessness, but of instinctive resistance. People didn't hide in fear, they fought. It was the nature of Earth's spirit to rise, even when it seemed the odds were insurmountable. In New York City, Sarah Adler, a brilliant young scientist, sat at her computer, furiously working through calculations. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a diplomat. But she had a weapon, an idea. She had seen the alien ships from her lab window, hovering in the sky like predators over their prey. And then she had heard their ultimatum. Earth's greatest strength, Sarah realized, was not in its numbers or technology. It was in its adaptability. The aliens hadn't expected humans to fight back, and they hadn't expected Earth's ingenuity to rise up against them. Sarah, her colleague Marcus Ortiz, said, his voice grim as he entered the lab. "The Varkor are advancing on the city. Our forces are on the run. We don't have much time." "I know," Sarah replied, barely looking up from her work. "But we do have a shot. I've found a way to disrupt their energy shield frequencies. It's our only chance." Marcus frowned. "You're talking about a direct assault on their tech. Do you even know if it'll work?" Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, her expression unwavering. "It'll work. I've modeled the interference patterns based on their energy signatures. We can disrupt their defenses long enough for our forces to make a strike. If we don't try, we're finished." Marcus glanced out the window at the distant hulking shadows of the Varkor ships. They were relentless, their sensors scanning every inch of the city, as if savoring the inevitability of their victory. "You're betting humanity's survival on a theory." "I'm betting on human will," Sarah said, her voice low but firm. "The Varkor are good at fighting, but they don't understand how we think. They think we'll break under pressure, but we won't." The days following the Varkor's arrival had been nothing short of catastrophic. Major cities were decimated by precision strikes, while military forces were unable to mount any significant defense. The alien ships had disabled Earth's satellite networks, crippled communication systems, and shut down critical power grids. It wasn't just an invasion, it was a systematic extermination designed to leave humanity vulnerable and fractured. But in the face of utter destruction, something unexpected happened. People began to fight. Civilians, soldiers, scientists, everyone did what they could. The world had turned against the Varkor in ways they couldn't comprehend. They hadn't anticipated that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its military or technology. It was its refusal to back down. Across the globe, small, scattered groups of resistance fighters launched guerrilla attacks on the invaders. Armed with whatever they could find, rifles, homemade explosives, drones, humanity struck back. It was chaos, it was desperation, but it was also resilience. In Berlin, a group of civilians managed to steal alien technology and use it against their captors, while in Buenos Aires, a hacker named Sofia Delgado infiltrated the Varkor's communications network, disrupting their command structure long enough for a surprise counterattack to succeed. As Sarah and Marcus prepared for their high-risk mission to disable the Varkor's shield, General Santiago in London was coordinating one of the last coordinated military efforts on Earth. With the alien invaders closing in on major capitals, His forces were scattered, poorly equipped, and demoralized. But there was one thing he had that the Var Corps could never have predicted: the human will to survive. "Get me every available fighter," he barked into the comms. "We don't retreat. We hit them where it hurts. No matter the cost, we push back. We're going to remind them why Earth is not a prize to be claimed." His resolve echoed across the planet, a message sent from every resistance leader, every soldier, and every civilian willing to fight. The Earth was on the brink of annihilation, but it was not yet broken. Humanity's fury had been unleashed, and it was no longer about survival. It was about defiance. At the same time, Sophia's hacking had begun to show results. Using a combination of underground networks and stolen alien tech, she managed to create a temporary breach in the Var Corps' defensive grid. The invaders, confident that their technology was impenetrable, were slow to react. In that crucial window, Earth's resistance forces were able to strike. And then, Sarah's plan fell into motion. She and Marcus, along with a small team of specialists, hijacked a satellite and rerouted its energy into a targeted beam, designed to overload the Var Corps' energy shields. The plan was fragile. Any misstep could send them all to their deaths, but it was their only shot. As the satellite fired, the Var Corps ships shimmered for a moment, their defenses flickering. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the signals. "It's working," she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. The alien ships wavered, momentarily exposed. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Earth's forces surged forward. Fighters took to the sky. Assault teams on the ground launched coordinated strikes, and every available resource on the planet was thrown into the fray. Humanity's fury, long suppressed, finally had a target. The Var Corps were strong, but they were not prepared for what Earth had become, a planet united in the fight for its life. With every passing second, the invaders' confidence slipped. They had come to take Earth. But now, the battle had just begun, and Earth's fury was only growing. The Var Corps thought they could break humanity's spirit. What they didn't account for was the fire that burned in every human heart, a fire that, once ignited, would consume them all. The battle for Earth had escalated into a full-scale war. Every city was a battlefield, every soldier a desperate warrior fighting not just for survival, but for vengeance. Humanity had risen, and the Var Corps were about to feel the wrath of a species pushed to the edge. In the skies above New York, the Forgotten Fleet arrived in a blaze of fire. The ships, sleek and menacing, tore through the atmosphere with the precision of a predator zeroing in on its prey. For the first time in days, Earth's defenders caught a glimpse of hope. But they weren't the only ones watching. The Var Corps, unmoving in the sky above, took notice. Their long-range weapons powered up, their focus now fixed on this new threat. They had underestimated Earth's potential, but they had no idea what they were about to face. In a matter of moments, the Forgotten Fleet's warships engaged, unleashing a wave of energy blasts that struck like thunderclaps. Each shot landed with devastating force, tearing through Var Corps ships like paper. The alien invaders were forced to scramble, their ships shifting and maneuvering to counter the sudden onslaught. But the Forgotten Fleet was prepared. Their ships, built for this moment, moved like phantoms through the void, unleashing hell upon their enemies. "Admiral, the Var Corps are regrouping," shouted Commander Isha as she observed the tactical hologram. "They're preparing to retaliate." Admiral Kalen's lips curled into a grim smile. Let them come. It had been centuries since they had fought in a war like this, but the Forgotten Fleet had been forged for moments exactly like this. They were human, unpredictable, fearless, and willing to sacrifice everything. As Kalen watched his fleet's forces cut through the Var Corps defenses, his thoughts were clear. This was the beginning of Earth's redemption. On the ground, Sarah Adler and Marcus Ortiz watched the sky light up with explosions. The Var Corps were losing their grip, and Earth's resistance had a chance to strike. Sarah's weapon, the one she had spent days perfecting, had helped tip the scales, giving Earth's forces a fighting chance. But the battle was far from over. "We need to hit them hard now," Marcus said. His voice strained as the ground beneath them shook from the blasts above. "If we can disrupt their command structure, we'll finish this." Sarah nodded, her eyes scanning the chaos unfolding outside. "I've been working on that. There's an uplink relay in the Varkor flagship. If we can take it down, their communications will collapse. We have to get to it." They had no time to waste. The tide of battle was shifting, but if they didn't act fast, the Varkor would recover and crush Earth's last hope. They fought their way through the chaos, dodging debris and explosions, moving toward their objective with a singular focus: survival. Above them, the skies burned. The Varkor flagship, a gargantuan vessel looming ominously over the planet, launched counterattacks with brutal precision. But the Forgotten Fleet had begun to show them the true meaning of war. Kalen's fleet wasn't just fighting for Earth's future. It was fighting for every lost human soul, every forgotten battle. The fleet strike teams descended upon the flagship, breaking through its shields with a combination of advanced weaponry and sheer human ingenuity. They didn't just rely on superior technology. They fought like savages, exploiting weaknesses, finding cracks in the Varkor's impenetrable facade. On the ground, Sarah and Marcus reached the uplink relay. The building around them was crumbling, the walls shaking as blasts from above ripped through the atmosphere. They had minutes, at most, to complete the task. Sarah knelt beside the relay, her fingers flying over the control panel. The seconds ticked away, the pounding of her heart deafening. Marcus stood guard, watching the horizon for any sign of the Varkor reinforcements. The tension in the air was thick, as if the entire planet was holding its breath. "Come on," Sarah muttered under her breath. She typed in the final sequence, her palms slick with sweat. With a final, desperate keystroke, she activated the virus. The relay sparked violently before short-circuiting, sending a shockwave through the Varkor communications. It was done. For a brief moment, Earth's forces had the advantage. The Varkor flagship's systems flickered, and their coordination began to unravel. The strike teams, led by the Forgotten Fleet, moved in to finish the job. But the Varkor were not finished yet. From a flagship, a new weapon was deployed, a devastating energy beam designed to wipe out everything in its path. The ground trembled, and the skies above seemed to burn brighter with each pulse of energy. Kalen's voice came over the comms, his tone calm but commanding. "All units, prepare for the final strike. We take them down now, before they can recover." As the final battle raged, the skies above Earth were filled with the deafening sound of war. Humanity's fury had only begun to reveal its full power. The Varkor, invincible in their own eyes, were about to learn a hard lesson. Earth would never bend, never break. The fire in the sky was only the beginning. The Varkor thought they had won, but they had never seen the storm humanity could summon when pushed to the edge. The Varkor flagship, now crippled from a series of coordinated strikes, was limping through the atmosphere. Its once imposing presence now barely a shadow of what it had been. Earth's forces, united in desperation, pushed forward, ready for the final assault. But the Varkor were not retreating. They were digging in their heels, preparing for the one last strike that would wipe Earth's resistance from the face of the planet. The ground shook beneath Sarah and Marcus as they sprinted through the abandoned streets of what was once New York City. The explosions above were constant now, each one sending shockwaves through the air. The Varkor had launched their last counterattack, and the war was on the verge of tipping into annihilation. "We need to make it to the command center," Marcus shouted, his voice hoarse. "If we're going to finish this, we have to shut down the last of their systems." Sarah nodded, breathless, her mind racing. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's last hope lay in one last strike, a direct assault on the Varkor flagship. But the flagship had been reinforced with deadly countermeasures, and they knew the aliens wouldn't give up without a fight. Ahead of them, the chaos was growing. The remnants of humanity's resistance forces were still scattered across the city, engaged in desperate firefights with the alien invaders. Sarah could see the fire in their eyes, the same fire that had been burning in every human since the Varkor's arrival. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for something bigger. "Cover me," Sarah said, pulling out a small device. "I'm hacking into their systems. We have one shot at this." As Sarah worked quickly to override the Varkor's last remaining defenses, Marcus kept watch. The tension in the air was palpable, each moment stretching like a knife. The alien invaders were closing in on their position, and the countdown had already begun. They had minutes, at most, to complete their mission. "I've got it." Sarah's voice cracked through the chaos. "I'm in. We can't shut them down completely, but we can cripple their weapons long enough for the final strike." Marcus nodded, and the two of them dashed toward the outskirts of the city, where the remaining resistance forces were assembling. There, Admiral Kalen's forgotten fleet hovered like a vengeful god, their ships bristling with weapons, ready to end the war once and for all. "We're almost there," Sarah said through gritted teeth. "Stay focused." Just as they reached the makeshift command center, the first blast hit. It was deafening, a massive shockwave that sent debris flying into the air. The Varkor flagship had unleashed its final weapon, and it was heading straight for Earth. Admiral Kalen's voice came through the comms, steady and unwavering. "This is it. We hit them now, or we lose everything." The Forgotten Fleet, now fully engaged, began their final assault. Ships fired relentless barrages at the Varkor flagship, each shot a desperate attempt to tear through the alien defenses. But the flagship's shields were still holding. Barely. Sarah's last hack had only given them a brief window of vulnerability. "Sarah, Marcus, now." Kalen's voice barked in their ears. In that moment, Sarah and Marcus exchanged a look. Determination, fear, and resolve all mixed into one. The final strike wasn't just a battle. It was a message to the universe. Earth would not be conquered. Earth would never fall. They sprinted forward, making their way to the edge of the city, where the last of the Varkor forces were regrouping. Sarah had one final plan, one final gamble. She had reprogrammed the energy pulses from the satellite array, and now it was time to use them against the invaders. With shaking hands, Sarah activated the system. The array hummed to life, and a brilliant beam of energy shot out, slamming into the Varkor flagship. The alien ship buckled under the force, its shields finally giving way. The first breach in the flagship's defenses had been made. "Now," Marcus shouted. As the Varkor flagship staggered, Earth's final strike team launched their attack, weapons blazing. The Forgotten Fleet's warships joined in, their firepower relentless, as they hammered the flagship into submission. It was over. The Varkor had lost. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The sky was quiet for the first time in weeks, the sound of explosions fading into the distance. And then, as the last of the Varkor forces retreated into the void, the enormity of the victory began to sink in. They had won. Earth had survived. But Sarah knew this wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about what Earth had become. Humanity had faced its extinction and had risen from the ashes. And as Earth's final defenders watched the alien ships fall, one thought echoed in their minds. This is just the beginning. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. The Varkor thought they had crushed Earth's resolve. But as their ships fell from the sky, the universe was about to learn one simple truth. Never underestimate the fury of a species fighting for its future. The sky above Earth was a mosaic of destruction. Alien warships tumbling from the heavens, debris scattering like stars falling from a dying constellation. The Varkor had been driven back, their flagship reduced to rubble, their invasion halted. But the price of victory had been high. Humanity had bled, lost, and fought tooth and nail to hold its ground. But now, as the alien fleet disintegrated, a new sense of purpose burned brighter than ever. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the weight of victory heavy in his chest. His fleet had done what seemed impossible. The Varkor were not merely beaten, they were broken. But Kalen knew better than anyone that this wasn't just Earth's victory. It was the dawn of something much larger. "All units report," he ordered, his voice steady, but his eyes sharp as he watched the final Varkor ships break apart in the distance. The communications officer spoke with reverence. "Sir, the enemy is in full retreat. Our forces are mopping up the last of their stragglers. Good, Kayla muttered. We've bought Earth some time, but the galaxy isn't going to just forget what happened here. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The Varkor might have been pushed back, but they were not the only power in the galaxy with eyes on Earth. Kaylin had lived long enough to know that victory often made enemies, and Earth's defiance would not go unnoticed. Back on Earth, in the shattered remains of New York City, Sarah and Marcus stood in the midst of the devastation, taking in the quiet aftermath. The streets were littered with debris, and the once bustling skyline was now a jagged silhouette against the setting sun. But amidst the destruction, there was a growing sense of triumph. Did we really do it? Marcus asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Did we actually win? Sarah, covered in dirt and blood, looked around at the people gathering in the streets, humans helping each other, pulling together to rebuild what had been lost. She smiled, her eyes tired but resolute. We did. But it's just the beginning. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? We've proven something today, Sarah said, her voice unwavering. The Varkor thought they could break us. They thought they could take Earth without resistance. But we showed them who we are, and now the galaxy is watching. She paused, looking toward the horizon, where the smoke of the battlefield still lingered. And we're not done yet. The world, once divided and fractured, was now united under a single banner, the banner of humanity's survival. The war against the Varkor had been brutal, but it had also been the crucible that forged a new era for Earth. No longer would humanity cower in the shadows of space. Earth had proven its resilience, and that was a message that would echo across the stars. But even as the victory celebrations began, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Earth's real test was only just beginning. The Varkor were gone, but there were other factions out there, other powers in the galaxy that might view humanity's defiance as a threat, not a triumph. What happens now? Marcus asked, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. Sarah turned to him, her expression determined. Now we prepare. The galaxy won't let us go unchallenged. We'll need to defend Earth from whatever comes next. But this time we'll be ready. As the sun set over Earth, the planet was not just a place of rubble and scars. It was a beacon of hope, of defiance, and of the undeniable strength of humanity. The Varkor had underestimated Earth, but they were far from the first to do so. And as long as humans breathed, they would not be the last. Admiral Kalen's fleet, though battle-worn, was already preparing for the next phase. They had answered Earth's call, but now they were part of a larger mission, one that would span galaxies, unite old allies, and face down threats unimaginable. Humanity had proven that it could stand against the darkness, and in doing so, it had earned its place among the stars. The galaxy would know the name of Earth from this day forward, and it would tremble at the thought of what humanity could do when pushed to its breaking point. And so, the fight for Earth's future had only just begun.